It's your election headquarters. Hello and welcome to Election Brief. Coming up in this edition, Christian Council demands prosecution of persons involved in the disturbances associated with the ongoing mass registration exercise.
Police, they have the law. They know the law. So anybody who infringes on it must be arrested.
Also, one of the registration centers identified as hotspots in the Asawase constituency is recording an increasing number of applicants whose eligibility is being challenged.
The challengers claim they are not residents of the area, so they have to go to the Akokoremanpon's Chief's Palace and then defend themselves.
And Center for Democratic Development calls for expansion of Electoral College to deal with vote buying.
Expanding the college will rather increase the cost of politics, as our research has established.
All these and more in the next 30 minutes. I'm Arabukumsi. We start off with the National Peace Council, which is today asking the opposition NDC and the governing NPP to distance themselves from the pockets of violence associated with the ongoing mass registration exercise. The Peace Council, which expressed worry over the recent incidents linked the violent protests at the Ejura, Setre, Dumasika, Swai, South and Tano South constituencies to acts of vigilantism. Well, Chairman of the Council, Most Reverend Emmanuel Asante, demanded the prompt arrest of persons engaged in the violence. He also reminded the two leading parties of their commitment to non-violence electoral processes. Well, presiding bishop of the Methodist Church and the chairman of the Christian Council, Paul Kwabena Boafo, has also condemned the acts.
I will not support it. I will condemn it totally outright because it is not the best for our nation. This is only a registration exercise that can enfranchise us to vote and to exercise our political rights. So to go in there with all these clashes, I don't think it's in the right direction at all. And I would condemn it right away.
What must the police do? We often find that there's mistrust, especially between the opposition political party and the police. What must they do now?
I think that the police, they have the law. They know the law. So anybody who infringes on it must be arrested. If the person is found guilty, the person must be arrested. In fact, you see, principles are principles. We should not condone and connive principles. If the person is on the wrong side of the law, he or she must be arrested. For me, that is what I will call for. The police must be up and doing.
Let's get on to the phone lines and speak to Director of Faculty of the Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. That's Professor Kwesi Enin. Many thanks for your time, Prof. These disturbances associated with the registration exercise that we're witnessing, were they to be expected?
Yes. There is absolutely no surprise to the violence at all. And let me try to explain. You know, in all the cycles of elections that we've had in the Fourth Republic, the violence stops around the 10th of December. Probably, moves on a little bit. But for this particular cycle, the violence has continued, and it has actually been escalating in terms of the narrative, the discourse, the abuses, the threats. And now it's being demonstrated in real physical sense. So I am not surprised at all. It's only going to get worse.
But, Prof, is it surprising that in spite of the commitment by the two leading parties that they've signed, we're still experiencing pockets of violence with this exercise?
Your voice is low. So
I was saying that I was making the point that the two leading political parties have signed a document committing to peace, and yet we're still experiencing these pockets of violence with this exercise.
I mean, the document that they signed I mean, there was no real seriousness to it. You know, they signed it, but they didn't really show commitment. And I think the behavior, as we are seeing now, is reflective of that lack of commitment to the principles and the values and the norms inherent in both the code of conduct and the roadmap. And so it was just a rhetorical flourish. We will sign, we'll give some speeches, but that was the end of it. But however, there's something also that I think I will need to flag.
Okay.
Vigilantism has changed. It has transformed. Vigilantes know that they put people in power and they make people powerful. So they began to understand the functional and economic utility of violence.
Right.
And now they want to use it for themselves. They know and they realize they are an alternative power source. I think your previous speaker was talking about, the police having the authority and the mandate, I think, to intervene and to arrest and prosecute. That is theoretically correct. But in practical, operational sense, no, it just does not happen. And that is why vigilantes are emboldened and there's a culture of impunity. And we see the violence that we are seeing now, which can only continue to escalate until the 7th of December.
Prof, I need you to, shed more light on this issue that you're raising about, the act of vigilantism transforming, or vigilantes transforming. They've transformed from vigilantes to what exactly?
Well, it's going to transform into organized militia. But it has transformed from serial killers, foot soldiers, and low-level and disorganized vigilantism, where those who were recruiting, funding, training, arming, could just use them and discard them. Now, there have been several instances in the last 3 years where vigilantes have struck a blow against the state. Now, in political theory, when you strike a blow against the state, it is not the police force that fights you. It is the armed forces. In Ghana, we cushion vigilantes against using the army to crush them because they are politically protected. Okay? Right. Now, we've also seen very interesting developments in the transformation process where vigilantes, as I've said, have attacked judges, have thrown out people who have been appointed by His Excellency the President, have faced off with the police. The only institution in Ghana that vigilantes are afraid of and who can be crushed is the Ghana Armed Force. Wow. So the real question is, why is the army not being authorized to go in there and wipe this canker out? Okay?
So
by not ordering the army to crush vigilantes.
That's the question we'll be putting.
Are being given a signal that they are untouchable.
Right. And that's a question we'll be putting to the authorities. But let's talk about the security agencies. We've heard the NDC complain about how the police looks on and does nothing when their members are being assaulted. And also they claim that complaints that they file at the police stations are rarely addressed. So how should the security forces ensure peace and serenity during the remaining days of this exercise?
How much do the political class understand how the security services work and how security services must be treated and reacted to? How much do the political class understand issues of oversight? Let me give you a very typical example that undermines the NDC argument. When His Excellency the President was candidate Akufo-Addo, if you remember the incident that happened in front of his house, and the police service claimed that they did not see it.
Right.
Candidate Akufo-Addo didn't have anywhere to go and complain to. So the political class itself has a responsibility and a duty to allow the security services to perform according to the professional tenets of their business. Now, when you meddle, you undermine your own security services, you threaten them, you throw away the hierarchy, the promotion infrastructure. What you do is that you create a political culture that determines their professional behavior, which undermines their self-confidence and ability to protect you when you need it.
Interesting. Very quickly, Prof, I'm sure that you've heard the reports of, the parties accusing each other and counter-accusations, especially in the case of the young man who was killed in Banda in the Bono region. He was mistaken to be an NDC man. Do you anticipate we'll see more of these going forward as we head towards the polls?
Well, look, the Banda case once more is unfortunate, but it is not surprising. Okay? Let the law work. Otherwise, we are going to see more of this.
All right.
I mean, the member of, or the contestant in today's paper says what? He's being hunted like a grass cutter. Okay? Now, if you see how grass cutters are hunted, smart, quick, flexible, almost impossible to catch.
Right.
But now he feels boxed and cornered. Question: were he to run to the nearest police station, will these hoodlums go there and seize him or burn down the police station?
Right.
Okay, so the ramifications of what we are seeing threatens our very existence. Vigilantism is a threat to Ghana's existence, and we need to securitize it, order the army to crush them and crush their funding.
All right. All right. Thank you so much for your time. That's Professor Kwesi Enin. He's with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center. Moving on, one of the registration centers identified as hotspots in the Asawasi constituency is recording an increasing number of applicants whose eligibility is being challenged. 17 challenge forms have been completed at Bola Bola since the third phase of the exercise, which began on Sunday. It's believed police and military presence has compelled party agents to resort to the challenge option instead of violence. Nana Sensumensa reports.
Bola Bola is sited along Asawasi's boundaries with Subin and Oforikrom constituencies. Both NPP and NDC have alleged non-residents are being barred by each of them into the area to register at such centers sited on the peripheral of the Asawasi constituency. Unlike in previous instances where fighting easily breaks out in such places, agents are using official channels to seek redress to their grievances. David Ando is the registration officer at Bola Bola.
There hasn't been any problem here. There hasn't been any problem. But it's just that there have been some challenges of people that they think they are not residents of this particular area. That is all that we have today. There hasn't been any.
How many challenge forms have they picked?
The challenge form, I think about 11 of them. There are 11 of them.
Okay.
So they will be meeting.
What are the reasons?
The challengers claim they are not residents of the area. So they have to go to the Asokore Chief's Palace and then defend themselves, give rules as to whether they are residents of the area or not. So it's up to them to visit the place and then.
What about the social distancing? Are you finding it difficult to?
It's been a challenge. We arrange and then disorganize it. We arrange and disorganize it. So it hasn't been as we expected. But then all the same, we are managing with it.
So if the challenge forms continues, what is the indication?
Oh, they have the right to challenge. It's also up to the challenger and the challenge to go and then prove himself right. That is all.
So yesterday, how many challenge forms?
Yesterday we filled 4.
4?
Yes, and today we have 11.
The first day?
The first day, I think 3.
So it's increasing?
Yes, it's increasing day by day.
Asokore Mampong Municipal Chief Executive Ali Dusedu explains the presence of security personnel is to prevent chaos.
Mampong municipality is a densely populated municipality. The municipality of about 500,000 population. It tells you that you have a huge task in maintaining peace and also making sure that all activities are done without any sort of negativity. And where we are currently, we call this place Bola Bola. Bola Bola, we share boundary. The boundary line is just here. For this, as just after this green line is Ufuriku. Now you get to this side also, just after the drain. There's also Subi constituency and for that matter KME. So this is more or less like a border line between 3 metropolitan municipal assemblies, Asokwaramampo, Ufuriku, KME. So you can see that you should expect the unexpected. On the basis of that, we took it upon ourselves to make sure that we beef up security just to curtail any eventuality. We don't know what someone might be planning to do, so that in case of any other thing, when it comes to undesirable events, they will be there to curtail them and to make sure that we get free, fair, and peaceful registration.
Nana Asensu Mensah reporting.
Now, Senior Programs Officer at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, Paul Kwabena Abrompa, says for Ghana to mitigate the phenomenon of vote buying in the various electoral processes, certain drastic measures would have to be taken, including expanding the various electoral colleges. Speaking on PM Express, he said the move would help make it extremely difficult for aspirants to pay their way through the electoral process. The concerns come on the back of allegations of vote buying amid a report by Corruption Watch, which seems to corroborate same. Mr. Abrompa admitted that even though the NDC and the NPP had recently expanded their electoral colleges, it had not significantly reduced the phenomenon. This, he says, is because other measures would have to be put in place to ensure that aspirants spend less during the electoral process.
Expanding the college will rather increase the cost of politics, as our research has established that in every single elections, candidates spend around $90,000 in getting their way through, from primaries to, if they qualify for the primaries, to the actual contest in elections. The report was released, I think, last 2 years or so. So that isn't option at all. The option now is, and Honorable Sophia was talking about the law. Yes, we can think about best practices from other countries to see. I was discussing with the Ambassador Francis Chiga, who is a retired diplomat now working with us, and he said in other jurisdictions they have a period at which you can hold contests. In the national level, presidential and parliamentary elections, they can reduce the amounts that people can actually do effective campaigning, so as to reduce the number of days that they will go to the field to increase their cost. They can also reduce the number of even posters. I think the NDC tried that in their last primaries, that people were limited as to how many campaign posters they can have. So some of these things we can have and have it. But if we have all these things and we don't have enforcement mechanisms, that goes with sanctions, there will be no.
You're still here on your election headquarters. This is the election brief. Now, the December 7th general elections is just some 5 months away, but the exception of the governing New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress, the other parties appear to be hiding behind the coronavirus pandemic. Fact is, the notable ones, the PNC, the CPP, and PPP, and others, have yet to even organize regional and national elections and then Congress to elect presidential and parliamentary candidates. While the National Committee of the Progressive People's Party has scheduled July 18, that's this coming Saturday, to hold its national convention. Due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 disease that has occasioned a ban on large gatherings, the ceremony will be held on a virtual platform from the party's head office in Accra. Director of Communications for the party, Parko Akon, joins us via Zoom. Thanks for your time, Parko. Now, for the purposes of clarity, have you elected all your national officers?
Thank you for having me, Araba. What it is that at the close of nomination, it happened that all the people who filed did not have any other person contending or any other person going with them. And so I can say that at the close of nomination, per the constitution of the party, which allows for the election of the chairman and the 3 vice chairmen together with the secretary and the treasurer, all of them are going unopposed.
Mm. And what about your presidential candidate? Are you going to acclaim Dr. Indum as your presidential candidate again?
That I'm told the National Committee has agreed that we open nomination for interested parties to pick form and file. As to whether Dr. Indum would like to contest in the 2020 election, we may be able to determine that after the closing of the nomination. As we speak, the National Committee has decided that we should open nominations, and so we may be able to tell if Dr. Indum will file after we have closed nominations.
Let's come back to the issue of your national officers who are going unopposed. Is it that they are not facing any competition?
Yeah, what it is that many of the candidates who picked form, some complained that they couldn't pay the filing fee. Others to realize that if they should go ahead, it was going to be difficult for them to compete against the other contenders. And so eventually, at the close of nomination, the people that were able to file are the ones that the National Committee accepted that they be acclaimed.
How is the party going to mobilize funds for your national campaign?
Well, as we've been doing in the past, the party gets support from its members. And we all know that the Progressive People's Party, since the party was formed in 2012, has shown that it is a serious party. And so members mobilize funds to support the party. And we are the only ones that have shown that have submitted our audited account since our formation in 2012. Every year, per the political parties law, we are always on time in filing for our audited account. And so I can say that our party is a party of the people, and the people support us as and when we call upon them.
And speaking of campaigning, we do know that there's a ban on rallies. How do you intend to campaign in this era of COVID?
Well, PPP is a youthful party. And so even before COVID came, we were already using social media platforms to campaign. In fact, the 2012-2016 campaign, we did about 50% of that using social media. And as we speak, today we have a group called the Eagles. They are the ones championing our social media campaign. We are doing lots of door-to-door in some selected constituencies. And we believe that from the way we've started, we are going to end well in the 2020 election.
All right, we'll have to leave it here. Paco Akon is Communications Director for the PPP. This is your election headquarters. Now, the youth wing of the governing MPP has outlined 60 reasons the youth should vote the MPP in the upcoming elections. Key among them is the creation of jobs, mostly exclusive for the youth, by the government in its tenure. National Youth Organizer Henry Nana Boachi says over 30 ventures have given more than 1 million jobs to young people. He says over 58 factories out of the 181 under the One District, One Factory initiative have been completed and operationalized, creating 10,983 direct jobs and 43,900 indirect jobs. He also cites the free senior high school and associated benefits, he says, puts the youth at the center of the MPP's government's policies.
Under the NDC, what did they do for employment? Indeed,
they could only put up just 1.5 factories or so. And even the Commander Sugar Factory, as I speak, is it working? No. But all our factories are working. That is the legacy of the incompetent former president. Number 2, NAPCO. A whooping 100,000 young persons have been employed under the various models of NAPCO by the government of President Akufo-Addo. And in Ashanti region alone, we have 25,000 beneficiaries. In Ashanti region alone, 25,000 beneficiaries. And this is a life-transforming policy. See, what did they do? JIDA was always hit with scandals. And as I speak, the former CEO is in prison. All they did was to dissipate our resources in a very bizarre manner. But under the leadership of lawyer Justin Kobia-Frimpong and the board chairman Samuel Uku, YEA's image is at all-time high. That is not the only thing under YEA. Number 4, YEA's Job Center platform, region flagship projects, and artisan directory has enabled thousands of young people across the country to secure sustainable jobs in a short to medium term.
Unfortunately, that's all time will allow us. I'm Arba Kumsin. Thanks for joining us. Join us same time tomorrow.